If you've recently bought watercolors and then thought, okay, but what now? How do I use these? I want to go over 8 different things that you need to know to actually be able to use them effectively. Now, watercolor comes in a bunch of different formats. The 2 main ones are dried pans of paint and tube paints. And we're going to start by talking about the tips for using pan paints. And watercolors in the pan format are dried little cubes of watercolor paint. In order to use them, you have to use some water to use them, and as a matter of fact, they work the best if you activate them first. If you go straight in with a damp brush onto the dry watercolors, you're going to get a little bit of paint, but if you first activate them by either dropping some water on or spraying the colors and then letting them sit for a bit, you're going to be able to get so much more vibrant color from them. And with watercolors, you have a lot of different options. You can paint directly from the pans if you want to use the colors as they are, but you also have the option to make your own custom mixtures of colors. And the way that you do that is by, in one of your little mixing wells, you're going to spray some water as your base for actually mixing the color up. And then you're going to use your brush kind of like a delivery device, and you're going to scoop up different colors that you want in your custom mixture, continually mixing it into that water until you get the color that you want. I try to enjoy the process of mixing because sometimes this can get a bit tedious to get as dark of a color as you want, so be patient and just continue adding color until you get to where you want to be. I recommend erring on the side of mixing too much color rather than too little, so that you're not having to mix more color up mid-painting when timing really matters. Part of the reason I recommend erring on the side of too much is that you can just let these dry, and once they're dry, since they're watercolors, you can reactivate these with water and use it again. Now, I call these tube watercolors because they're watercolors that come in a tube container. And rather than being dry paint, they are kind of in a gel-like consistency. Now, unlike pan paints, tube paints come like this. So you're gonna need something else to have access to these colors and mix up different colors. So you're gonna want a mixing well. Something like any of these is gonna work great. Now, when you use tube paint watercolors, you don't need as much as you might think. So I recommend starting with small dots on the side of your mixing wells. You can always get more if you need more later. Now, similar to the pan paints, you can paint directly from the colors that you've squeezed out just by wetting your brush and then touching onto there, maybe scrubbing around a bit so that you actually have it distributed nicely through your bristles. But where I typically reach for tube paints is where I'm going to be mixing up a lot of custom colors in larger quantities, because that's the main advantage that I've found to using them. You have easier access to more paints, and that means you can achieve a darker saturation faster. They're super easy to mix with. Just like you did with the pan paints, you're going to start with some water, and then you're just going to add that color in, checking as you go until you get to the color that you want. Now, if you do happen to squeeze a little bit too much out, don't worry, it's not a total loss, because since they're watercolors, you can always just let it dry and then use it again. As a matter of fact, that's one of the other magical things about watercolors in a tube. You can actually make your own custom set of watercolors using the colors you prefer from tube paints by buying empty half pans, and then you just fill them up, let them dry, and then you just snap them into your case, and you have a set of watercolors that's fully customized to your preferences.